All right. Good morning, everybody. Today we are doing our weekly hypnosis talks with me, Jasiah, and Pete. And today we are doing the topic of what do you do when you don't feel motivated? And this is motivated by my non motivation this morning. And so Pete came up with the great idea to talk about that, which I know so many people deal with. And I'm one of them right now this morning. So, Pete, I'll just hand it over to you.
Yeah, I will say we all get that feeling. I know I do, right? There's days where the alarm goes off and we're just like, 5 more minutes, please, right? And we just don't want to um, do anything, at least not in that moment. Maybe later, right? Things kind of pick back up. Um, but I found for me, that helps the most is having or reminding myself of my purpose, right? It is not that purpose is the cure all for a lack of motivation, but it's there to remind at least me why I'm getting up, right? I'm not getting up just to get up. I'm getting up for a reason, you know? And so the way I usually describe it, to a lot of my clients and even to myself when I was really trying to learn it was like, if I just took you, picked you up, put you in the woods without purpose and even direction, you feel lost, right? You'll get stuck and going, I don't know where to go, so I'm not going to go anywhere, right? Versus if I gave you a compass and I said, hey, look, $1 million, if you go north, you will find $1 million. Now you have purpose to go north, right? And when you take that purpose to go north, you're going to hit those barriers, right? You're going to hit those moments of like, oh my goodness, this is going to be tough. But we don't hit it with that depressed or sad or just feeling. We really begin to enter it going, I know what's on the other side of this, so I'm going to push through, right? Even when we're tired, we still push through. You know, to me, that's where the motivation really gets to be built up, right? Because it's not always going to be present. It's not always going to be in our eyesight. But we always have to remember, why are we doing what we do? It's not about getting up. It's about everything you're going to do after you get up.
Right. So that leads to, I think a really potent question, which is what if you are not living your purpose?
I would say 95% of people are not living their purpose.
And so, as besides this being, just a good general, discussion, for the betterment of our lives and all of that, how could we talk about it in the lens of hypnosis as a practitioner and a client?
Yeah, when it comes to any change work, right, especially with hypnosis, there has to be a purpose, right? Hypnosis without purpose is just trance, right?
Wait, say that again. I want to write it down in our little banner.
Yeah. So hypnosis without purpose is just trance, right? It's no different than, we learn it as highway hypnosis, right? It's no different than just being on autopilot. You can be in trance without purpose. Most people are in trance without purpose in their everyday life. And so when we give it a purpose, now we are moving towards something, right? Now we have a reason to change that bad habit, to learn a new skill, to put ourselves in an awkward situation or an uncomfortable situation because of what's on the other side of it, And so when I think of like all my clients, right, that's probably one of the first questions I'll ask everyone is why is this important to you? Right. And if they go, I don't know, right? Or I just want to be happier. Who doesn't want to be happier? Right. But being happier is such a blanket statement. Right. It's such a surface level statement. It doesn't speak to who we are as a person. Right. And so as practitioners, it's our job to dig deeper. Right. Now, sometimes it's really easy. Sometimes we can do it in 5 minutes. Sometimes it takes the whole first session, right? But without that purpose, you can put someone into hypnosis, into trance, and they won't change because they still don't have the purpose on the why they're doing what they're doing, right? The goal, the outcome on a personal level, right? It's one where I'll think of, I had a client yesterday where he was like, Pete, I want to be a better communicator. And I was like, why? And he's like, well, I want more money. He goes, my job is sales. I got to be a good communicator to make more sales. And I went, oh, okay. I said, but it's just more money? He goes, yeah, I just want more money. And so I just went, okay. And I reached in my wallet. I pulled out a $5 bill. And I said, here, now you've made more money. Job complete. And he kind of looked at me dumbfounded and he was kind of like, well, that's not what I mean. I'm like, but that's what you said. So what's the deeper purpose to more money? Right. Then it turned into, well, I want my son to go to a good school. Right. I want to get a nicer house for my family. I want a nicer car because it allows me to feel confident that I'm doing something right for the people I'm selling to. Right. That is a lot better purpose than going, I want more money. And so often we just settle for that surface level. We don't want to dig deep. One, usually out of fear, right? We go, well, what if I'm not good enough for it? What if I can't have it? So we go, I'm just not going to go there. But that ultimately stops us from living out that purpose, right? It stops us from when we hit that obstacle because everything we do is going to hit an obstacle. No ifs, ands, or buts. There's always going to be a reason to stop, right? But as long as we can hold on to our personal purpose, we will always overcome it. We won't let it stop us,
Well, yeah, and it also makes me think about like two things. One thing about like your purpose, you want more money, but then when you go down, you learn more like the root of what it is, which will then maybe even get you closer to the truth of what you want. And it's the same with clients you spoke of having, and me too, as well as my own experiences of you come in with a problem, but your practitioner realizes with you pretty soon that actually that's not the issue. And I'm noticing that with various people that I work with. It's like I have this pain and there's this thing, and so you keep working on the pain. And I think that's hard for logical minded people who think a pain is a pain because of the muscle or the tendon. And it's like, well, it's hard to convince someone that sometimes it's an emotion that happened, that it's connected to something else. That's hard for a rational person who hasn't experienced it yet. And so I feel like as well with motivation or even, working with hypnosis, but even motivation, sometimes it's often not what we think, which again is one of the most exciting things about working in hypnosis and with the subconscious, is that, in my opinion, in my experience, is that you're having an opportunity to not have an interface with your logical mind, but instead with the actual conductor, which is the subconscious, right? And so I had a really incredible hypnosis session actually with a practitioner here. and it was amazing. And the one thing that happened, it was, a whole series of stuff. It was all very interesting. What came, I definitely, my logical mind would not have come up with what my subconscious said. And I'm comfortable, familiar enough to just listen and laugh and go, hey, this is what came up. And at one point we're on the train to my destination, just to like the next small step, just the next easy small step. And the conductor is like my wise self, and there I was, just like happy and having a great time. And then, and then myself, or the conductor, changed into Goofy, the Disney character Goofy. I was just like, what? And so I tried to wait for it to change or to be something else. No, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And it was a few things, but it ended up just being like, the answer was lighten up. And that was not at all what, but actually it is quite a motivation, and it is quite a purpose to lighten up, especially when you're trying to do something. Your logical mind is just spinning its wheels. And so it's good to not question. I have no connection to Goofy as like a character in my life, or I didn't watch him in particular in Disney, but that's what came up. Why? I mean, it's, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because the lesson was potent.
Yeah.
Lighten up in a good way, not in
Yeah.
a condescending lighten up, but like lighten up. And then all of a sudden, the dark, dense matter that's just been like this, it's like, oh, Goofy, he giggles and he's just like, just lighten up. He's still a good dad, to his son in the newer cartoons, but
Uh,
lighten up. So it was just a really cool experience, just around, um, if you listen to your subconscious and you have a good practitioner and you're willing to go, that's not where I was going, but to find or listen to what that lesson might be.
yeah.
It's amazingly inside us, just like more often than we could ever imagine.
Yeah.
Right? So, but we were talking about hypnosis without purpose is just trance, which I think is, powerful, and also to remember our purpose um, when we feel unmotivated,
Yeah.
and just talking about when, how do you remember your purpose if you aren't living your purpose?
Yeah. And it really is like a lot of us are afraid to live our purpose because we were told it's selfish, right? We get told that, be happy with what you have, right? That was a big thing for me growing up. Is my parents were always like, you should be happy for what you have, which I 100% agree with, but it doesn't mean that's where I have to settle for, right? And I think that's where a lot of problems come in, because we typically go, yeah, but the starving kids in Africa, they don't get meals, so I should be happy that I'm eating hot dogs. It's like, yeah, I'm happy I got food, but I don't have to settle for hot dogs. Maybe it's filet mignon that I want, right? And so if I, yeah, look at the kids in Africa, again, big thing heard growing up, I should be just settling for that. But there goes my purpose of getting the filet mignon, right? Of that juicy steak that I know I deserve, that I earned.
Yeah, I think it's a really great point. It's a really a great point. But what the question that comes to my mind is, what about when you you're in a position where you feel like you're in an obligation? It's like, I have to pay the bills. I have this job that, or I'm
Yeah.
doing everything I think I can, and I'm still in absolute suffering. So there's
Yeah.
those two different scenarios, but
Yeah. So, like, if we think of one, I think it was Earl Nightingale, who used to help people, as long as jobs have existed, right? It's the dreaded Monday, right? People dread going back to work on Monday. After a nice weekend, they're like, ugh, right? It's because they're going to that job without purpose. Now, they did a study, now this is back in the 1960s, where people who were happy to go to work on Monday, right? The only reason they were happy to go to work on Monday is because they had stuff planned for that Saturday, right? They had purpose to go to work on Monday because they had to do something on Saturday. Where the people who dreaded Monday, they were just going because they were told you have to go to work on Monday. They were just going through the motions, right? And so he really brought to light the fact that purpose for a lot of people was having a picture of their children at their desk. So on Monday, they go in, they see their kids going, this weekend we're going to Six Flags. That's why I'm here today. I'm here today to pay for Six Flags on Saturday.
Right. That's what I wanted to just interject is like, sometimes you're there on Monday so that you can do something on Saturday, but sometimes you're there on Monday, just, to pay your bills or, or maybe, maybe what I'm hearing too is like, besides just paying your bills to survive, because obviously that's, can make you suicidal. That's not funny, but I mean, it's not nice to just do that. But maybe even what I'm hearing is like, it's good to even have just little things to look forward to. And then you feel like you've created, now you're working towards this thing that you've created for yourself for some joy. And that's smart. I feel like that's smart.
A big difference from paying your bills and then the Six Flags is you kind of said it. The Six Flags is something you enjoy. That is very emotional. It has literally nothing to do with Six Flags. It has to do with the emotional side of it, where paying your bills is such a physical thing. So this is one where Bob Proctor, right, we'll talk about someone else who really, I think, nailed it on the head. He was like, if we look at ice, it's in a physical form, right? It really, the uses it has is extremely limited, right? That is the same thing as going to work to pay your bills. It's a very physical thing, right? And so when we look at ice, very physical, very limited. It can't heat stuff up. It can only cool stuff down, right? But ice also can be water. Now, water can be used to heat, to cook, or to cool things down, right? It's a little bit more fluid, right? When we look at that now that's taking something physical, moving it a little bit away to more, emotional with still a physical practicality. From there, it can turn to steam, right? Now, steam can still heat things up. Steam can take wrinkles out of clothes. Right? It can be then transformed back into water, which can then be transformed into ice, right? It has a lot more, practicalness to it, but it's also harder to see, right? Then it turns into air, right? And air, we can't see air, but now it has so many more uses, right? Now, not only can it, to be turned into steam, which can be turned into water, ice, but now it keeps us breathing. Now it keeps us alive, but yet we can't see it, right? It's so far away from that physical plane, but it's so much more powerful, right? Because when you see ice, you don't think of, I breathe this, right? This is keeping me alive, right? We look at it and go, this is killing me. If I just stayed in ice, I would be dead, right? That's the problem with staying in the physical world. But when you can bring it up to the, to it's just air, right? Gas, it can be everything underneath it, right? But it's more intangible, which is just very much our emotions, right? And so when we do things and stay motivated by emotional things, we're able to do so much more than just the physical things. I hope that makes sense, and I didn't kind of like overcomplicate it.
Well, no, you came around at the end, which it sounds like when we stay in the physical realm and in that physical like discomfort, the logical mind, all things physical and real, um, it's necessary. It has a place. It's necessary, but there's many other states of being like water, and when we get to emotional places, and especially like for motivation or for trying to feel better or any of those things, um, it's another state of being that's not as solid as ice. And um, the capacity, the reality of our body and our mind functioning off emotion is I mean, I think it's just really been scientifically proven, but it's definitely experienced and proven like within hypnosis and these various realms that um, when we have an emotion, our body reacts. That is actually scientific, right?
Yeah.
And um,
Think I think of like people who are usually severely depressed, right? And this is one where I say I actually even had a client a couple of days ago, let's say Thursday, so 3 days ago, where they went, Pete, like my room is just right? And they go, so I feel and I asked them, I said, what color represents like peace and happiness? Right? And they went, well, it's yellows, it's greens, it's purples. I went, awesome. I said, what colors are in your room? And they went, it's the blacks and it's the browns and, it's white. And I said, what do those colors represent? Now, to their awareness, they went, well, black can both mean happy and sad. Right? And they're like, white is this kind of neutral. And I forget what they said about the brown. But I was like, it's interesting how you're expecting something that's kind of blah around you to make you feel good versus you feeling good first and then not allowing the room not to change, but to change. Right. And like other stuff they said is they were waiting for people to come to them to make them feel better. Right. They're waiting for things to happen so they get to be pulled out of it. And it's like, well, no, like you gotta change yourself first, right? You gotta go, hey, what makes me happy? Is it the yellows and the greens? Have you thought about incorporating that into your life? And they were like, well, no. And I'm like, so you're just waiting to wake up one day and your room's gonna be yellow and green and purple? And they're kind of like, well, that sounds silly when you put it like that. I'm like, but that's essentially what you're doing. So what if you took the initiative yourself? How would that change how you feel about yourself and even your room? And they went, well, they would change everything. Right.
Yeah.
It all starts within us first to change the outside. The outside, the physical world will never change us inside. And to me, that comes down to really understanding your purpose and knowing that it's, again, I'll go back to the selfishness. It's okay to be selfish. It's okay to be like, I don't want to live in this 2-bedroom apartment anymore. I want to live in a $5 million mansion. That's awesome. It's okay to be that selfish, right? Because that'll give you the purpose to go, well, what do I got to do next to get there, right? You can honestly say working at Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks will never get you that. Doesn't matter if it's a 20-year career, 50-year career, unless you move up to CEO, right? So if you go, okay, so I'm going to stay at Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, perfect. What are you going to do if you stay there to get that mansion? Well, you can't stay the counter person. You can't even just be a location manager. you would have to be more than that, right? So then it turns into, well, what steps do I got to take? Do I have a conversation with someone to go, how do I move up in this company? How do I get into corporate? How do I become a VP, a director, or whatever, right? You got to have that plan, because that'll make it so when you go to work on Monday, you'll go, I'm not just going to work to go to work. I'm going to work to get promoted.
Yeah, which just brings it, sorry, then just brings it really back to, when you don't feel motivated, remember your purpose. And when you aren't living your purpose, that can be a really big challenge. But then you can find, what is it? If you're not living your purpose, then you can find, where did we go from there? What was the last piece?
So I say one thing that rings inside my mind is, if I'm not living my dream, I have to be living someone else's.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah.
Right. If I'm not living my purpose, I'm filling or fulfilling someone else's purpose. Right. You're never just in limbo. You're either doing things for you or you're doing things for someone else. And that someone else is living their purpose. When we think of like business owners, right? They thrive off people not living their purpose.
Right.
But it allows them to live their purpose.
Very true. Yeah. Very true.
And so we got to keep that in mind, that when we do live our purpose, there's going to be people who go, don't. But it's probably because we're living theirs.
That's very true. And I feel like, if it's not a boss that you are living for, something else would be is, what's the purpose of your fear or your obstacles? Are you somehow feeding them so they can keep going so that you don't?
Yeah.
It's another thing. Sometimes it's not a boss that you work for, it's some other boss.
Sometimes it's family.
Some other thing that's, family.
Right. It's one I've worked with people before where the parents are pretty comfortable, right? They rely on their children to take care of them. So they get to live their purpose of not having to have responsibility because they put it on the children. And so when the child goes, hey, I want to go off on my own, they make them feel bad. So the child doesn't live their purpose.
Well,
so they can live theirs.
That's not a good parent.
It's they're out there.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely. And so we have to be able to recognize that, to go, you guys are going to have to live your purpose while I live mine.
Yeah.
And they will find another way, or they will create a better purpose.
Yeah, I love the purpose. I do feel like, of course, it's super powerful. It's super potent. And I feel like today's talk, it's stemmed, just to like wrap it back up, is that, it started with me not being motivated this morning to do this talk. And Pete was like, let's talk about what to do when you don't feel motivated. And, from there, we went to realizing that, when you don't feel motivated, then you can just remember your purpose. And then it evolves into, if you don't remember your purpose, or you aren't living your purpose, what things can you do? And some of the things are to, like, for example, remember water and all the different states and forms that it is, and that, all the forms from ice to steam all have their unique qualities. But some of those, ice is it has a purpose, keeps things cold. It's very solid. It's in that physical matter. but there's many other forms that water can take, just like our own lives, going from physical body to emotions to memories, and that we have emotions are, some of the strongest things that we have that actually dictate the body. And so um, with that, we have more states of being at our fingertips, like water. And so I'm definitely going to run with that. I think that those are some powerful things to remember. Any last things that you want to say, Pete, before we wrap up our
Nope.
session for this week?
I think you ended it really well.
Awesome. Well, as always, anyone who has any other questions about this session this week, or have a specific question, or even things you'd like to hear about, then definitely let us know. And until then, we hope you all have a great week. Ciao.